Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land from our lockdown location here in Modi'in, which is also known as our regular studio. And just a reminder that if you want your headlines from Israel every Monday to Thursday on this very platform, this is where you need to be. We're also on YouTube. You can find us at the Israel Brief, and all you have to do to get your daily updates is click on the big red subscribe button and you'll be notified every time we post a brief. But let's get into those top stories, and we begin with the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was announced earlier today by Israel's health ministry that they had approved the Moderna vaccine, and Israel can expect about 6 million shipments, or 6 million units rather, within the next couple of weeks. And it also has been confirmed that at least 2/3 of Israel's residents in nursing homes and homes for the elderly have been vaccinated. And this comes as Israel has sailed past the 1 million mark. And of yesterday's count, we were 1,340,000 people vaccinated against the spreading virus. However, this doesn't mean that the numbers aren't still rising. The numbers are still very high, and we are expecting the Corona Cabinet to meet within the hours to discuss possibly tightening the lockdown that the country is currently under. At the moment, we are just over our first week in a 2-week lockdown, and we are expecting this to not only be lengthened but also be tightened. And news in today from the managers of various hospitals that they fear that this third wave of the COVID-19 virus is much more dangerous and much more lethal, and is having a much more dire effect than the previous two. In other news, we now go to the United Nations, and last week there was a vote on the budget, and by 167 to 2, the two against being the United States and Israel, the budget has passed. And the budget officially passed last night. But why did Israel and the United States vote against the budget? Well, because this year's budget includes funds allocated to commemorating the 20th anniversary of the UN Conference on Racism that took place in Durban, South Africa in 2001. The conference, which was intended to highlight racism and to fight against this growing scourge, instead turned into an all-out war against Israel, the Jewish state, and some of the most gross anti-Semitic invective that we have seen in recent years came out at this conference, which prompted many countries, including the United States and various others, to get up and walk out. It's also very significant because this was the conference that put BDS, or the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement, firmly in people's consciousness, and the deliberate launching of this at the conference in Durban was extremely symbolic because if you're going to make racism the center of your accusations against Israel, where better to do this than at a United Nations conference against racism in Durban, South Africa, the home of apartheid, and also the home where apartheid was eventually defeated. And this commemoration is an insult to Israel and anybody fighting anti-Semitism around the world, because it will commemorate an event where this was the intended outcome. And now we come back to Israel, and yesterday we spoke about the fact that Arab Israelis are volunteering in high numbers into the IDF. And if yesterday was about our Arab Israeli community, today is about women in the IDF. And it was announced that the first all-female intelligence unit in the north will be deployed. This is the first time in Israel's history, and this unit will be responsible for gathering information via drones. And it must be the year of the woman, because this also follows an announcement that the head of intelligence against Iran will be a woman. And also Israel celebrates our first lone soldier from the United States who has graduated pilot's course, who is a woman. So 2021 will hopefully be the year of female Wonder Woman warriors in the IDF. But those are the top stories. for today. And don't forget that you can check out our original content online at our website at www.layoftheland.online. There is more on that article, or more about what I spoke about yesterday, which was, is Israel, who is leading the world in vaccinations, responsible for vaccinating Palestinians? Well, the truth is up there, and it's not from my mouth only, it's also from the proverbial horse's mouth, the Palestinians. So read more about that there. It will also be on our Facebook page, and if you haven't already liked us or followed us, please do so at Lottel Site. And also, we like interacting with you, so if you have any comments or suggestions, don't be shy to tell us. We're also on Twitter at LayOfTheLand5. Interact with us there, follow us, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Israel Brief. So with the Tuesday edition of The Israel Brief, I'm Rolene Marks, and we'll chat again tomorrow.